Good afternoon, folks, and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. We have another 3 speakers this afternoon. Nice to see so many people in the hall. That's great. Our first speaker is Ed Alford. Now, I'm going to apologise now to Ed because I'm Aberdonian and I would pronounce that Alford. And at some stage today, I'm going to mispronounce it Alford. So I just apologise now. Ed Alford, who's Chief Technology Officer for New Look. And Ed wants to talk about the business of transforming a sort of bricks and mortar retailer to a digital offering. So, Ed, over to you.
Thanks very much. As always, when you come to do one of these things, you really prepare for months and get it all right. So I asked our marketing department on Thursday of last week, I'm doing this talk, any chance we've got a marketing video we could use? And they went, that's going to take a bit of time, Ed. And quite rightly so, it was my bad. Anyway, I was talking to my 16-year-old daughter over the weekend and she knocked that together on TikTok. The reason I mention that is not because I'm immensely proud, or even more proud of the fact that I said, David Bowie, you're not thinking Harry Styles? She went, no, Bowie's a king, Dad. But the reason I say that is because technology and digital technology and the generation that we work with now, as an old guy, 52, they know how to use this stuff at their fingertips. So you need to be as fast as them. And you need to embrace them, even if they don't work in the technology department or they don't work in the IT department. Technology and any kind of transformation is about everybody now who work in your organisation. I used to work for BP. I've been working in Aberdeen, so I know my name's Alford, so it's all right. But I spent 28 years in the oil and gas industry. I had a fantastic time, and latterly in BP, I was accountable for transformations, one of these words, but getting us onto the cloud, production workloads onto the cloud, getting us onto software-defined networks, changing the approach and how we deliver things from being project to product. Lots of good things, and it was great fun to do it. And then I retired and had 15 months garden leave. And I can soundly say that if anybody offers you that, take it, it's the best time of your life. But then I got a call and somebody said, look, do you want to come to New Look? And we want to do a technology refresh because we've just been saved from the CVA, lost about 500 odd million. Our investors wanted to become the #1 omni-channel retailer. and they felt that they wanted technology to be the heart of that. You'll have heard of one of the biggest companies in the world that's catching everybody up is a company called Shein. And Shein, whilst I can put a wee plug in, their product isn't as good as ours, which is why it gets returned a lot. But they look at data, and their technology data-led, and they're coming after everybody. So our investors said, look, see technology being at the heart of everything that we do. We want to change the nature of how people shop. They're called stores, but I like to think of them as hubs, because it's about a destination now, and how you will engage with the retailer. So it was come to New Look and kind of do all those things that you did at BP a bit faster, please. So I thought that sounds good. I'll get into some of that. So I joined New Look, and you can see there, that's Emily Atack, who's one of our models, King Charles Spaniel. I'm going to be doing the menswear in a couple of years. I've got a King Charles Spaniel as well. And then that was me wearing that was me going to the Christmas party, wearing the #1 coat of last Christmas that Anne-Marie modelled between the ages of 21 and 30. So I kind of connected with my inner Harry Styles, and that was me. So it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun at BP, but people have said, why move to retail? Well, why not? I think technology kind of covers both, any industry, because it's how you approach it. So 2020, just coming out, you've all, maybe you're not, the retail industry went through a bit of a downturn. Companies like Arcadia came off the high street, went bust. Lots of retailers, the cost of trading, they couldn't afford to be in business. And so our investors decided that we had a good enough brand that they wanted to invest in, and quite frankly, go after the 1.3 billion that Arcadia left on the table. And so that's why they decided to invest in us, and actually wanted to take us from, when I started, we lost 25 million. And as you can see there, we've been entered into Draper's Retailer of the Year. You can see last year we made 26 million. So we've had increase in our EBITDA year on year. The product, which I have a new CEO who is fantastic, and she was behind making the product better. And the feedback that we're getting is that we're the #1 women's wear retailer for 18 to 44-year-olds because the product is getting better. And so the trick now is we need to make the technology better so that engaging with our customers, if you got the product right, what are you going to do next? Again, success for the future, we feel, is about the destination is not a store that just sells you products and you leave the store. It's other things. So we have vision, or I have vision at least, with the right technology, we could do fashion shows in the store. We've got big digital screens. You can go in and you can scan a QR code on the digital screens, and then that'll bring the product up in the app, and you can order it because the app knows who you are, and it knows your size, and it knows everything about you in 2 clicks, and you've got it getting delivered to you. And the main thing is making sure that you don't get it and it looks rubbish, or getting it and the quality's rubbish, and that way you return it. And a lot will come on to that, but the fast fashion business, the challenge is making sure the product's right, but making sure that you can do things in a sustainable way now, and kind of minimise returns. So there's things that we've kind of put live in our app around fit, trying to get better at that, and the technology is getting better and better. Digital commerce, back in the day, retailers, in order to get into e-com, decided that the best way to do it was set up a store in their ERP systems, which was the e-com business. Massive shop, completely different department, from the department that manages the stores to the department that manages the buyers. And one of the other challenges that I have is to completely rip that up and make it a much more microservices API-based technology set, so that, in the last kind of 14 months, we've increased the release train from 3 months to 6 weeks, but actually by making it more microservices API-based, and on the cloud, we can put changes in and be responsive to customers in 2 weeks and with different products that are coming in. So it's about re-architecting that entire landscape. And actually, one of the other things that I want to do is make everything that we have API driven and actually be able to share APIs with our partners. So that, again, hubs that we have, different concession partners who are using those hubs, actually can basically take some of our APIs around our order management systems and actually just drop product into our stores without going through our distribution centre. And so kind of moving towards that is where we need to get to as well. And then, new revenue streams. I think as far as the great gift I have is that I don't know anything about retail, so I can ask really stupid questions. Like, why do we buy more stuff than we need? And then somebody says, well, that's because we have a sale. I'm like, well, why don't we just buy it and then sell it at full price? Just saying. The app's now got 6 million users, 6 million customers. Maybe we could advertise, right? And actually, if we advertise on the app, get some revenue in from that, that'll then fund my product teams to do things with the app. And so it's kind of looking at your business model rather than buy it, move it, put it in a distribution centre, get it to the customer or the shops, and then sell it and get rid of it, to actually, well, how do you join all of that up and actually think about it a bit differently? And technology is the key to that. So, kind of one of the other reasons I wanted to do a blank sheet of paper. First thing to do was sort the workplace out, transform the workplace. If you're going to be a technology-led organisation, there's no point in the people in your organisation using good product back in the day, but an IBM Lenovo from 2005 on Windows XP or whatever. So we kind of deployed new laptops, Office 365, Teams working properly, not just for the video calls, Teams collaborative, Surface hubs, all of that kind of stuff around the place, in the stores as well, so they could communicate with each other. We kind of put all of that in play in 3 months. Cloud first organisation, we are Microsoft Azure Cloud. Again, the pace that we need to move at, I've kind of selected partners, used my experience from BP, rather than do 6-month procurement exercise for big partners who pretty much, they can all do what they need to be doing. So if you're going to use Azure Cloud, AWS or Google Cloud, it's pretty much for muchness, just saying. They'll all hate me for that. I've worked with all 3 of them. I love them dearly. But actually, if you don't need multi-cloud, just pick one. If you're massive, then multi-cloud's fine. But actually, if you're small enough, pick one cloud and invest in it, because then you can invest in your capability in that. New point of sale systems, mobile point of sale that's out there is about 25 years old. If you've been into a new look, there's lots of queues sometimes because the point of sale breaks down. When somebody says to you, why are we investing in the point of sale? It's a really good answer, because it's the point of sale and we make money from sales. So you need to invest in that. The app, getting the app much more, again, people have been able to buy things from TikTok, Instagram. Come back to my 16-year-old. I had massive imposter syndrome taking this job, because actually, what does a 52-year-old man know what a woman wants to buy and how she wants to buy it? So ask all of the women around you. And actually, the first thing that I did was I went shopping with her in Westfield and said, tell me how this needs to work. And she gave me it all, from networks, transforming the networks, Wi-Fi, know who I am, sending me offers, get my data on the app. And again, that generation, they're not worried about sharing their data. She actually wants me to suggest something that looks good on her, that she can see a picture of someone who looks like her wearing that thing, and double click on it, Apple Pay bought within seconds. Which isn't great if you're giving them pocket money, because they might run out quite quick. But you need to get into that world, and that's what we're doing. Something like 60% of under 18s now use TikTok as their search engine versus Google. And so that wee video that she put together, if she's looking for green dresses are in, by the way. It's quite scary what I now know. My CEO, she's a wonderful person. She's like, Ed, at the end of this, you're going to be scary. You'll understand it. But searching for green dress, searches on TikTok. Who's wearing it? What they look like? buy. It's as simple as that, rather than Google. Payment systems, need to put a whole new payment system in the back end. Whole point of omnichannel is today, believe it or not, the retailers can't tell if you buy something online or if you buy it in a store. You're two completely different customers. Again, structurally we are changing, and we'll come on to squads in a minute, but I'm not a big believer in organisations, and what I'm a believer in is taking multidisciplinary talent in your organisation and forming them into squads. And we're doing that around omnichannel. In order to help those folks, they need to see who their customer is. And their customer is based on whether they're buying online or whether they're buying in a hub. Order management systems between the warehouse, again, being able to speed partnering. We're looking at partnering with some of the big supermarkets. In order for us to do that, order management system's key, because it means that you don't have to move it into your distribution centre, tag it, barcode it, send it to the supermarkets and have it all part of your ecosystem. The order management systems now, as long as I know the tag, you know where the product is. So again, using technology for that. Networks, putting the networks in across software-defined networks across all of our head offices and all of our stores, all on the same network, and also offering customer Wi-Fi. So that if you're walking past any of our hubs, that actually and you've got the app, I can send you the offers if you're close by, because you've connected to the Wi-Fi, and actually you might want to go into the hub. Again, 16-year-old wear pals walk around Westfield wanting free Wi-Fi, so they don't need to use their data plan, and they just connect to all the stores, right? And they go from one store to the next with their Wi-Fi. And then finally, data across all of it. And so, one of the other things I found out is that everybody uses data, but they use it in their different silos. So actually what we want to do is bring it all together and do something maybe a wee bit revolutionary, which is around cost per category stroke product, and actually see not only how much it costs you for that particular product, but also feedback what the customer wants as well. And so you get this symbiotic loop between the customer and the buying and the product. And we'll also come on to something else we're doing. I've got a very, very creative senior head of design who came to me one day and said, get me into the metaverse, but hold on for that thought. New concept stores, again, we'll launch our store of the future next April. And again, it's not about, it's how are you using those spaces. You can see there that it's not very, but that's a gym in one of the Hermes pop-up fitness centre. Again, using their space for something different. The virtual fitting room. I always wonder sometimes whether Hollywood drives the future or whether Hollywood kind of knows something we don't know. But a lot of the stuff that you saw in Minority Report, if any of you watched that film, is coming true, right? And it's about getting the pace of, people talk about personalisation and the invasiveness of it and all this, but there's a whole generation coming behind us that are like, please, we'll have some of that. Again, that leads on to being a data-led business and knowing your customer. Unfortunately, I've got a wee plug for Gap there, but I don't think Gap's on the high street anymore, so it's okay. But Tom Cruise going into a store and it knows who he is. I have a vision which is, again, I stole it from one of the girls who's in the shoe team who came up and said, Ed, it'd be really cool if this could, she's pointing at her phone, if this could be a remote control in one of our stores, so that I can come in, take a selfie with my friends and post it up on a digital wall. And then the people in the shop know I'm there, and just making it a wee bit more interactive. And then even scarier things like suggest songs. And then it got even a bit scarier, taking pictures and changing rooms and fitting rooms. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of things around that, but you get the idea, which is becoming much more immersive in terms of the experience. The trick is if that's an immersive experience, having the same experience when you're in your house as well, using an app or using the web. So we're building a trading platform. One of the challenges from moving from BP to, as much as my old CFO will probably hate me saying this, but one of the challenges from moving BP to retail is time is kryptonite and money is oxygen. And every now and again, our CFO says to me, can you spend 4 million less this quarter? And it's kind of like, right, okay, we'll come on to how we do that now. But it's kind of, you have to make 2 mile of copper wire out of a 2p piece sometimes. That's not me pleading poverty, it's just fact reality. I've kind of given a plug to 4 partners there. Let's be clear, Azure wanted my data or our data on their cloud. And I said, I'm not going to do anything until May of next year. They then come back and said, if you put it on our cloud, we'll invest in it and we'll kind of put money towards it and we'll get you going faster and we'll get this thing up and running for August of next year. So again, another kind of message, part of this is about partnering and going with some of the right partners to try and help you on your journey. I kind of said somebody, we don't have a transformation team. Actually, what we have is an organisation that fantastically wanted to change, knew that they could improve. We're suffering a bit because we just come out of the CFA and we're losing money and are committed to changing the way we do things. My job is just to give them the tools, right? And give them, everybody as part of the organisation wants to change. And that's the transformation. It's not so much we have a transformation team and they're going to give you a new way of working. Everybody kind of knows what they need to know, and they're all very talented folks from the ages of 22-year-olds all the way up to kind of 50-year-olds. So you've got experience and you've got youth there, and it's a great blend of diversity that can help drive this. Senior head of design, get me into the Metaverse, Ed, and I'm going, well, we're not going to buy products, we're not going to buy site in the Metaverse. I'm not buying houses and we're not buying stores and all the rest of it. But she had a fantastic idea, which was, if I can get into the Metaverse, I can talk to a customer while I'm doing design. And I can spot trends. In fact, I can make trends by talking to a massive group of folks and sharing with them our designs and what we're doing. And I kind of thought, well, that is pretty cool, actually. And, you know, again, the 20-odd-year-olds in our business who are part of the design team and part of the buying team, they're like, yeah, like know exactly how we're going to use this, because they're using it in their kind of personal worlds as well. So I'm really excited about that, what that looks like. But, you know, how we interact, how we create trends, products, services, and ultimately it might change how we run and operate the business. So when somebody said to me Metaverse before, I thought Snoop Dogg, Burberry buying a shop, how daft. Actually, there might be a use here. And as you can see there, the blues, the function pieces around product ownership, market structures is how we're going to go after some of this. We're exploring it. Again, it's a cultural thing. The shift in culture change was not just do projects, but I wanted the entire company actually to explore and think about how we could use technology together versus I'm in charge of technology, I get to decide. It's much more kind of joined at the hip. Culture is everything in the organisation. I don't just talk about the technology organisation. I think, again, you'll hear me talking about the technology organisation, not the IT function. Because the way the IT function used to be was the business had an idea and they gave it to the IT, and IT put lots of bureaucracy in there and did all the things that we did. That's not to say it was wrong. It was entirely right because of architectural purity and make sure you don't waste and make sure you don't build stuff that you throw away and all of those kind of good things. But I think the way that technology and the culture that we have now, the right-hand side was when I started. I asked everyone, including the business folks, how it felt. And the left-hand side is bigger because they come up with lots more things. And the arrows, it was a very inward-focused organisation when I started, and now it's very outward-focused. And we kind of changed the nature of how we all work together. I'm not a big believer in holy wars in organisations around who owns what. It's actually about getting the right people in the right space, putting them in the right squad structure, minimising the handoffs, you know, get them working creatively, empowerment, and then give them intent, and off they go. And some fantastic things happen at pace. So how we used to work, we used to be very project-led. Finance would approve a certain budget, and then we would march to a given project, and we'd have the different phases of the project. Teams were set up in such a way, 3 delivery organisation, divided by methodology, all of that stuff's probably very familiar. Kind of rip all that up, and I'll show you in a wee second. But you know, one of my peers, the CFO said, "This is a bit scary, Ed. How do we know we're going to get what we said we were going to get, and how do we know we're going to get the value? And this is all going to go out of control. I said, well, good news is I don't have enough money to get out of control, so that's the good news. And we moved much more to kind of capacity-based product teams. In order to deliver that slide earlier on with all of that stuff going on, I couldn't deliver it if it was projects. So now we have an engineering map of all of the different APIs and products that get delivered across all of it. Because if you think payment touches e-commerce, touches the stores, touches everything. Networks touches everything. Order management systems touch e-com, touch stores. They're all very intrinsically linked, and I don't think I'd be able to deliver it. I'd be doing it for 6 years if it was project by project. And now we have an engineering capacity, and we set ourselves up there. You can see we have a solution lead, a product lead, and a delivery lead. And then we put the squads of engineers and the product folks around them. And every Monday they stand up, work out what they're going to do, and crack on. And we have very, light touch on governance and all of those things around stage gates and those kind of things. So everybody that's in the squad to deliver a product is the talent that's needed. Everyone from digital security to product creation, all in the same squad. We moved much more to objectives and key results from products. And again, I've been hugely pleased about how much the organisation's really embraced. Again, why did they want to change? Because the three things: know we can improve, suffer and reward, and commitment. And actually we've got all three of those, and people are it's becoming viral and infectious that, as people are working in this way, people are seeing results and things coming out of the back end of it. So a couple of big milestones. We'll re-platform the web and the app. The app, we get nominated for, we finished second to Moonpig in App of the Year, but we've been putting changes into our app all the way, and it's now app native. The web will be completely microservice API by about March next year. And all of the other things start landing all the way up to about August, September. And then, my big thing is that I'm really excited to see what the data is going to tell folks. We don't have a data organisation. Data's embedded in all of the organisation, and we have a community of data scientists who get together once a week and talk about what we need, what the use cases are to put into this lake based on all of the changes to the technology that we're making. So that's what we're doing. Hopefully you can go and buy. And I do know actually that Ross went and bought some jeans, so thank you, Ross, after he watched the video. But yeah, if you don't shop at New Look, I would urge you to go in and have a wee look at the product, because the product is an awful lot better, and you might enjoy it. And hopefully I can put the technology out there that makes it a wee bit more fun. Thanks very much.
If anybody's minus a seat, there are seats up the front here if you want to grab one, folks, because there's a few folks standing up the back there. Our next speaker is Nicola Harvey, who's Chief Officer for Customer and Digital Services, City of Edinburgh Council. Nicola's going to be talking about driving innovation through customers. So, Nicola.
Afternoon, everybody. I hope you had an enjoyable lunch. I'm not going to lie, Ed, but I think when people saw this lineup, they thought I was the wife that was going to be talking about New Look, and you were maybe going to be talking about the City of Edinburgh Council. Nothing like the element of surprise. And one thing I will say to you is your app, all us ladies, I'm giving a secret away here, ladies, all us ladies lie about our size. I said, so I hope the app that you're developing knows that and sends us something that will actually fit us, because we always lie. Don't share your data. Don't share your data. Welcome, everybody. I hope you've had a nice lunch. Thanks for coming along. I'm Nicola Harvey, and I work at the City of Edinburgh Council. My background is actually private sector, and I've worked in Edinburgh Council for around about 5 years. And before I went to move to Edinburgh, they went, don't do it, don't go, you'll never survive. It all is extremely slow in public sector. And I guess that was a big drive for me to try and take a bit of that ethos from private sector into public. I was Ops Director for Prudential. I worked in financial services for pretty much most of my career. And before I went to Edinburgh, I worked in a large outsourcer, managing accounts, a portfolio director up and down the UK, M&S, don't want to say Ed, M&S, John Lewis, 3 UK, lots of large brands. And actually what I would say to you all is, actually hopefully what you'll see today is the links between each presentation are all pretty much the same, because we're all trying to do the same thing. And actually there is no one organisation any further ahead than the other. And the biggest thing that I will say to all of you today, it's about keeping it simple. It's about holding on to your belief that you can actually make that change. And it's about using facts to influence your board to actually move forward in the simplest way. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of background into me and into Edinburgh. You know, Edinburgh is a fantastic city. You're all here today. We host the royal family. We're a World Heritage Site. We run a festival back up and running, which is fantastic. And we have a whole host of tourism that comes into the city that actually is putting a strain on services. And we're really proud of our history, and we want to make sure, and I want to make sure, that we're delivering the best service possible. Before I come on to the next slide, because this is actually the point that I make, and I don't want to use jargon today, you know, I am an ordinary person that comes from an ordinary family that's worked up through organisations and suddenly find myself in public sector. And this slide here is just about how you start building a plan. And smart cities and digital, it all sounds like super fantastic, doesn't it? But a lot of it is getting the basics right and building on that plan. I'm going to tell you a story very quickly, but my parents are 84. And when I went to move into public sector, they went, "You'll never survive, Nicola. All you'll be doing is dealing with bins and potholes." And do you want to know what? They're right. Hey, thanks for that feedback, everyone. But my dad, who's 84, and his bin got taken into the back of the bin lorry one day, something that probably some of you have experienced. And he was like a man possessed at 84. He was going on holiday, and he was like, "Has my bin arrived yet?" You know, and he had to phone the council, and he went through layers and layers and layers of IVR and got through to someone that went, "They can't help you. It's over there. No, it's over there." And it took about 3 weeks before he got his bin in. Every day I was getting a phone call, "Nicola, has my bin arrived yet?" "No, it's not." And, do you know, it was a real life moment, right? It sounds like something, it's just like, oh, you're dealing with bins. But actually, for my dad at 84, he had rubbish piling in the greenhouse, all of that stuff going on. And, you know, it was really quite a stressful moment for me and my two sisters. That was the phone calls that we dealt with every single day for 3 weeks until that bloody bin arrived. And it made me realise, you know, whilst the work of the council can get belittled, we all go to work every day. I did it when I was Ops Director in Prue. You just assume your bin's going to get lifted, that street light's going to get fixed, and that pothole that's just wrecked your car is also going to get sorted. So you just expect that to happen, but behind the scenes, a lot of stuff has to happen to make sure that that flows through. But, you know, it really resonated with me when I saw my parents, and I thought, we've got to get this better, and we've got to get this right. We've got to get the basics right. We can talk about fantastic stuff, and we can talk about online and digital, and, you know, we're all going to be like, somebody's going to know my size before I even walk into buy something. But actually, we've also got to get the basics right as part of your plan to go digital. This is the plan that I started to develop for Edinburgh. And, you know, the bottom of this slide actually talks about, you know, getting the basics right. So the first thing that I did was looked at our website and looked at our CRM, our call routing system, our case management system, where things would fall through a black hole, and we just did not know why that street light had not been fixed. And let me tell you why today. The operative goes out, they get the job through, they see it coming in, they go out to the street light, they take their ladder, they put it up and they go, "Yeah, the ladder's not big enough, I'm going to have to go back to base, and we're going to shut that job down, it's going to look like it's done, I'm going to have to get a bigger ladder to go back out to that job." And everything falls down a black hole, right? That's just what happens. And I'm talking about council, but regardless of what organisations you're in, the same thing happens. The same thing happens in Prudential, the same thing happens in John Lewis, the same thing happens in Marks and Spencer's. Get the basics right. Get it right, make sure that you can see that end-to-end journey, so when it does, because things do fall down a black hole, you know why it's happened and you can pick it up and manage it proactively. So we did a lot on our website, we did a lot in our CRM system, we introduced a new portal that allowed residents, because it's all about proactive service, right? You don't want to be reacting to things all the time. Proactive service. When a resident now goes onto our website, for certain services, they can actually see if someone has registered an interest in that fault before them, and they don't have to go through a bureaucratic online process and fill out a form again and do it again. They can actually see that Nicola Harvey's been on, she's registered that streetlight's been out, and actually just click a button to say, I want some updates on that. So, so we've revamped it that way. So that was building the foundations, end-to-end integration. But before we got to understanding what services, we very quickly move online, and we, allow citizens to service business in that way. We did it through data, which is something that Ed's talked about. There were 120 service lines across Edinburgh City Council, and everybody wanted them all done. And that's maybe some of the dilemmas that you will face in your own organisation. We want it all. So when you first start talking about going digital, you have to say, well, hang on a minute, we've got to start somewhere. That's our vision, but we want to start down here. So we looked at the 120 service lines, and we could actually see through data that 31 of those service lines drove 80% of the demand into our organisation. When I talk about demand, I talk about phone calls and noise and rework. 31 of those, all the things that you would imagine: streetlights, potholes, waste, mist bins, communal bins, taxi licensing, same things across every single local authority. Those were the ones that we moved online into that new world first. And now we're on to phase 2. So that's the first part of our journey. Second part of our journey is how we make education better. Lots of local authorities have rolled out iPads. What we're currently doing, and again, it's to move the classroom forward. Isn't it incredible in the year 2022, we're still educating kids pretty much in the same way that we did about, 40 years ago. So what we're actually doing is rolling out a solution to our teachers that allows them to interact with children through iPads and devices. It allows them to send little emojis, it allows them to manage work, it allows them to see all of those people that sit at the back of the room that are pretending they're involved in the lesson, that are not really involved in the lesson. It allows the teacher, I'm sure you're not doing that up the back, but allows the teachers to actually see what's going on and actually to say, I'm going to lock down your lesson right now because we know that you're not quite focusing, and actually to send a little message to Nicola Harvey because they know that she's mucking about at the back of the class. So just a different way to actually deal with children in the classroom, and actually to send little positive messages, because we all know with our kids, regardless of whether they're great with technology at that age, especially when it's secondary, nobody wants to be different, nobody wants to be singled out. So actually to be able to send a little message to the kids that way actually does help their self-esteem and help improve things. So that was the second part of the plan. On the other side, health and social care, what I did was looked at solutions to allow our healthcare workers to schedule themselves more effectively across the city. And again, there's so much to do across health and social care, but you've got to start somewhere. And isn't it incredible that we would just send people across from one side of the city to another to go and visit people in the home? It wasn't effective. They're having to actually do things on their devices. They're having to use paper. And actually, so this particular solution allows us, well, like your sat-nav if you don't argue with it, but allows us to schedule our workforce across the city in the most effective way. And we're using that asset, and I hate this phrase, but I'm going to use it today, we're sweating that asset now, and we've actually rolled it into our housing teams who go out and make repairs and maintenance in homes. Again, the most effective journey ever. Ed touched on something that's really important. Of all the technology that you will hear today, unless you take people with you on the journey, it won't work. Technology is not the answer. It's not the answer to everything. It's a facilitator. And until you tell people what you want to do and why you want to do it and how it's going to help them. So buzzwords are, ease of customer effort, ease of employee effort, making it easy for your employees, making it easy for your customers to do business. Unless you take people on that journey, it doesn't matter how super flashy your technology is, it won't work. People have got to understand why they're using it. And we saw a bit of that in housing, where people, like you do when you argue with your sat-nav, try to manipulate the tool. I don't want to go on that journey, I want to go over there. Well, don't, it actually mucks it up. You actually have to follow the journey that the solution gives you. So health and social care and inner repairs, we've rolled that out. The middle, and it sounds very grand, smart cities. which I'll come on to right now. We're on a smart city journey. Get the basics right, do a bit in education, do a bit with our workforce to schedule it more effectively. The next bit is on smart cities. Again, it sounds very grand, and a lot of times when you come to conferences like this, people want to wow you with the grand stuff that they're doing. This is the vision for sure, but actually my feedback to everybody here today is start small. The smart city vision is about how we do things differently using an IoT platform. A platform that drives data with sensors that you are placing in various different places across the city that drives the data to allow you to reshape service. And that's the sort of the next part of the journey that we're now on, and it's real and it's live and we're working on. Never want to talk about anything that's not real, because often when I've attended conferences myself, people walk away and go, how are we going to do that back at base? That sounded great. And hopefully I'll help you with that today. But it is about building robust business cases to influence your board to say, actually, here's why it's right to do this, here's the efficiency we'll get, here's the cashable savings that we can make by progressing this particular business case. So our vision on smart cities is huge, but we're starting with smart waste and smart housing, and we're doing a piece on CCTV, clearly because we get a lot of tourism into the city centre, and we want to be able to manage people flow, traffic management, all of that, so we can get people on the most effective journey and understand where pinch points are across the city. It's real interesting stuff on how we do this and how we can monitor what's going on through data. So our IoT platform is now in, and lots of local authorities have already put sensors into bins to tell you whether they're nearing overflowing or not. But what they've not done is tied them into an IoT platform, which is what we're doing. So our smart city approach into future housing, again, it's about proactive servicing. I'll not go through all the narrative on this slide because it'll bore you to death, and I'm just going to try and bring it to life for you. So in housing, what we're doing is we're putting sensors into 500 houses, social houses across the city, and that's to tell what is going on in the walls of that home. So it gets you to, it reduces your repair bill, coupled with the solution that we've got in place on sort of mobilising your workforce. So the repairs operatives go across all the city. We're factoring the most effective journey, but we can also tell the state of that house. Is it damp? What is the repair looking like? Is there something else going on in that house that we need to fix? And you get to it quicker. And therefore, you reduce your costs and you manage things more effectively. So that's the first thing that's going on in homes. We've got work going on to re-energise and refurbish the CCTV across the city. Again, that will be tapped into our IoT platform. It will drive data to allow us to see what's going on in the city, and we will reshape our services round about that. I mean, watching traffic and people flow throughout the city is so important. It also allows us to deal with, disturbance, because our plan will be to tap this into all the different other partners that we work with, such as Police Scotland. So again, you can get to that disturbance really quickly, and actually you can deal with it before it becomes a larger incident. Next thing is smart waste, which I've talked about. All the communal bins across the city, 11,000 sensors are going out around the city, and again, it will allow the waste service to reshape what they are doing. So you're not having to send the bin lorries out where the bins are not needing emptied. You know exactly what's going on, you know exactly when they're getting overflowing. Lots of the demand into Edinburgh is this bin is overflowing, there's been fly tipping over here. Well, we get to it quicker because the sensors are telling us exactly what's going on. And it's like next level for the council, and not many local authorities have already, because everybody goes, what is IoT? What is it? Will someone please tell me? So not every local authority is actually doing this, so we're one of the first on the journey, and it's really exciting. The most difficult bit has been getting buy-in from the organisation. People will come along, partners will come along, you know, the big four, go, here's smart cities and here's what it's all about. And everyone goes, yes, it all sounds grand, there's big flashy pictures up on screens. And this is the bit that I really want to get across to all of you. You know, we sit there as a board and we look at it and we go, here, how are we going to do that? You know, so it's actually about breaking it down and making it real and making it manageable. And when people get a wee bit too carried away, you say, hang on a minute, let's just get this bit done first. So that's smart waste. We've, as part of our business cases, this slide really talks to anticipated benefits. The issue in a local authority has been, and I'm sure maybe if a lot of you work in private sector, it doesn't quite work this way, but in a local authority, the biggest message that I have relayed is we need to stop being victims. I've worked in private sector where you have to generate your new business. You have to operate within your budget. You have to make yourself more effective, more efficient, and you have to drive technology, and you have to get customers to come to you. A local authority doesn't have to do that. You have to come to me. In Edinburgh, you can't go anywhere else. But I'll tell you what I've said to them is if customers could go somewhere else, they would, if we don't get this right. So I've tried to dispel that myth in our local authority. And, you know, we have a budget. Private sector has a budget too. We've got to operate within that and use that and be more effective within it. And we can do just the same as what private sector are doing with technology if you get your business case right. And that's what this slide talks to. It's about making sure that when you go to your board, that actually you've got the right level of detail in there that looks at why are we doing it? And what benefit are we going to drive by doing it? And what cashable savings are you going to get? Now, the issue that we've got in a local authority is typically the way it works is you just slice and dice. So every year, how are we going to make savings? Let's cut headcount. Let's move out and you're still left with all the work. What I'm trying to show is, and then it becomes a bit doom and gloom, and they go, oh, we can't provide that service, we can't do that. It's about cutting public services. And sometimes you have to do that. But actually with technology and with improving people effort and with improving customer effort, actually you can drive better service. And it's about helping people understand that. It's not doom and gloom. We can actually drive more positive ways to actually service the residents of Edinburgh. But your business case has got to be really factual. And the one thing that gets asked for me when I go to the board is, where are we getting the cashable savings? When are we going to get them? And when are you going to drive them? And it's about making sure that that's really clear. And then for me, delivering this strategy, I run customer service and IT in Edinburgh Council. And I'm actually linking into the waste service, the housing service. And I've got to say to them, you've got to deliver this benefit. Are you signing up to it? And here's why you need to sign up to it. It's pretty factual. Actually, we can reduce your service times by this. And we've added in a bit of contingency. You need to deliver that saving. So that can be quite challenging. But the other bit, in terms of customer effort and people effort, you've got to bring people with you and tell them why it will make life easier if you implement this strategy. So that's my talk, and hopefully that's resonated with you a little bit, and now I'm going to hand over to Chris.
Apologies to Nicola's father, but I used to be a scaffy many, many years ago. I was one of the guys that put the bins through the lorry, sometimes deliberately. Our last speaker is Wright, Technical Advisor for AdInMo. Basically, what he wants to talk about is advertising in the Metaverse. So, Chris, over to you.
Thank you. Hi there. So, a little bit of background. So, I'm an entrepreneur. I've started a number of businesses. My previous business before AdInMo, and I got into AdInMo through a friend who was starting an ad tech company, had started it for a while, and I came in to give him some technical advice, turned into CTO, and I was CTO for 2 years, and I've just stepped back, and I'm now technical advisor. Before that, my real background is the video games industry, which I've been in for the last 25 years, and AdInMo's definitely within that space. Previous to that, I founded an analytics company called Delta DNA back in 2010, which became one of the biggest analytics companies in the mobile games industry. And we sold that about 4 years ago to Unity, and it's now Unity Analytics. And that was a really interesting journey of understanding how you take and use data and that transformation. So the games industry went through a transformation from selling products to selling services, and then using data, and we were one of the big kind of catalysts to how you get that data and how you can use that data. And AdInMo is doing the same sort of thing, but in the ad tech space. So hopefully this will be interesting. So what we're doing, to some extent, is in the metaverse. Really, we're an ad tech company in the games industry, which basically means we're doing branded digital advertising. So we're putting ads directly into the game experience. So you imagine billboards at the side of racing tracks, really obvious. You're driving down, racing in a game, and you've got these billboards. We're able to actually place branded ads into those spaces to track what users are seeing, and then recognize those as impressions, as viewable items. Now, obviously, that's in the games industry at the moment, which is a pure 3D environment. But you can start to see as the metaverse, and we'll get on to what the metaverse is, but as the metaverse becomes 3D and all-inclusive, you start to move into digital twins, which gets really into some of the stuff that Ed was talking about, and you're kind of getting into shopping and into the retail space. You're also starting to get into social media, everything else as the metaverse expands. And a lot of this is now in an interesting space where privacy is really important. So the digital advertising industry has been very successful, incredibly successful, and a lot to do with the fact that it actually is able to track you. It's able to understand who you are. And actually, as this evolves, people get more and more data, and everybody gets very excited about the data you can collect. And Delta, we collected a lot of data about how people played games. And ultimately, we got bought by an advertising company, because Unity, if you know Unity, it's a game engine, but actually it makes most of its money from Unity Ads, which is the ad tech, and that was the part we got acquired by. So ad tech is all about understanding users. But that's evolving. That industry is changing. A lot of things Apple are doing, and so is Google, is moving away and is trying to separate that down. And so actually doing this in a privacy-first world is really challenging. But to start off with, what is the metaverse? Which I really, really hope it isn't Mark Zuckerberg's view of the metaverse, because that's just really scary. But, there's a lot of different versions of what the metaverse is. Is it a 3D version of Zoom? Is it a video game, Roblox? Is it the internet in 3D? Is it cryptocurrency and NFTs and the digital transactional space? Virtual reality or augmented reality? And probably, in reality, it's a combination of all these things. But what it actually will be is it'll be taking, we've already got used to using the digital devices, the mobile phone, the smartphone has become pretty much attached to our hands, and using that as a way of transacting, be it doing it offline or walking even into a shop and actually using it as your digital remote or your ability to interact with things around you. That's just going to expand. As digital expands beyond the black tablet that's sitting in our hands into a space that we can see, be it Apple glasses or Oculus Quest or whatever the kind of the system that allows us to transform data and digital environment into our space, it'll become much more part of our world. You can imagine it already is, but it's going to become even more so. So AdInMo, we were founded in 2018, so we're about 4 years old. And as I said, I came in about 2 years into that journey. And it's really focused on trying to deliver brands and branded ads directly into the gameplay. So delivering them as a part of the gameplay experience. We provide a full tech stack that allows that to make it very easy for developers to add our ads in. But we then talk, and it's really important for us to talk into the larger ad ecosystem. So we work with massive big ad exchanges. We identify users in the game. We have these placements. We're then basically providing those opportunities into exchanges. We bid on or provide the ads into the bidding systems. We run real-time bids. We run our own auctions. We identify the best potential ad. We bring that back, and then we display it directly into the game. And we do that within about 20 to 30 milliseconds. So it's a very rapid process, and we're doing this, thousands and thousands of times a second. But a lot of this is also about collecting and managing data. And the big thing about what we're doing, different from a lot of the other ad tech companies, is we're not a performance network, which means that we don't have a clip. We don't have any way that the user can tell us that they liked this ad or they didn't like this ad. And that means that we've got more challenges with being able to target. Because ultimately what we want to do is we want to put the right ad in front of the right user to make the most money and generate the most value. And doing that in a privacy-first world, so that we're not tracking users and we're not interfering with their privacy, but actually managing to try and come up with stuff that they're interested in. And a lot of this is the apocalypse. A lot of this is about what's happening with advertising. The market is changing massively. Apple has really started to lock down how you're tracking users. The IDFA, which is the ID for advertisers, the device ID in a phone, is becoming a lot harder to track. They're basically getting rid of this as much as possible, and Google's doing the same. They're allowing users to decide, which is probably a good thing, but they're encouraging users to switch this stuff off. And this really removes the ability for us to track users, to attribute, did this person who saw this ad, did they actually do something with it? Can we link these things together? And ultimately, can we better target? So it breaks that performance advertising. It breaks the ability to get the right thing in front of the right users. And that has had huge impacts to the digital advertising space. You've seen this on Facebook, on Snapchat, across the space. You've seen companies really struggling with this challenge of not having the ability to track users. So the future of personalized advertising, we believe a lot of this is going to go branded. It's going to be much less about people clicking and tracking, and much more about putting the right thing in front of users and giving it a much more passive experience. So more like digital out of home, the ability to walk down the street and see advertising, but those advertising still should have some form of personalization. We think that a lot of this stuff is going to come together. Digital world and the physical world are going to come together. And we're kind of moving away from this transactional relationship between an advertiser and a user, and trying to actually make it much more of an experience. So the branded experience, not just you get an ad, you click on it, you go and buy something, but actually you're trying to encourage the users to see stuff. And a lot of this is already happening. If you look at TikTok, the fact that TikTok is now the biggest search engine, it's much more about looking into something, finding something, and seeing stuff in an area you're interested in, seeing it on somebody who's famous or you like, and that's what actually drives people. Rather than having an ads that basically take over your screen and that are forced in front of you. Now, this stuff isn't actually that new. So this is an image from, if anybody knows the game, it's from Burnout Paradise back in about 2008. And it was one of the very first games, console game, Xbox 360, that actually did this sort of thing. And actually the advertising, quite famously, they did the Obama campaign within the game. So they were already putting ads into games. And this started, there was a company called Massive in 2008, did this. The problem they had was that the market was just too small. Games, if you look at console games, a console game like Burnout Paradise might only sell 5 or 6 million copies, which seems like a lot, but it's not that many people. And those people are wanting to play the game, they're doing it in a very specific time, and they're actually quite a closed, specific demographic. Normally, quite often guys, quite often between 14 and 24. Mobile has changed that space completely. Mobile has massively opened up the games industry to become just an entertainment industry. Well over 1 billion people have played Candy Crush. The market has just expanded. It's a kind of random chart, but you can see the size of the games industry, up to 165 billion, roughly about now, and the mobile side of this. As the PC and the console has kind of dwindled, the mobile has just massively taken over. And what it does is it provides access to these rich environments to everybody in an environment that is always on there, always connected, it's always in their pocket. There's only really 3 things that anybody ever does when they leave the house. They check that they've got their phone, they've checked they've got their wallet, and they've got their keys. And actually, as the mobile evolves, people don't even need keys and they don't even need a wallet, so they just check they've got their phone. And that's evolving. So this ability to provide an experience that everybody has and give them access to this is huge. Big part of this is viewability. So what we had to do is work with, there's about 4 or 5 companies in the space, so it's still a very nascent space. to work with the IAB, which is the big independent advertising agency, the big industry body that drives this, and we work with them on viewability. What defines an ad in a 3D environment? Very important to games, but will be hugely important to the metaverse. So we've gone through a whole viewability spec, which has actually just been published about 2 months ago, which defines what does an impression mean, what makes an ad actually an ad in a 3D space. And we've defined it as a percentage of the screen space or the viewable space, the amount of time for 1 second, the degree of angle of that ad, and there's a whole set of other criteria. But we've now defined what it is that makes an ad within the full 3D space. And this is a real core building block, not just to games, but to the whole metaverse, because as the whole of this environment goes 3D, then the ability to understand what actually recognizes an item within that space is going to be so important. So games probably right now are the biggest example of 3D immersive environments, but that's going to change. So you've got digital twins, and digital twins are really interesting. I mean, both Nicola and Ed have talked about the fact that you're starting to do IoT, the fact that you've actually got items that you're connected to, the fact that you've actually got retail environments that you're going to be shopping in, which may be physical, they may be virtual, they may be a combination of both. And digital twins is that process of building a complete digital representation of a physical environment and then linking them together so that you can actually shop in a digital version of the environment that you know as your physical environment that works just like you'd expect it to. And that's really where these things are going to go. The two will start to merge together, which makes it really interesting. And then you start to think about what you can do with advertising in that space. So everything that can be done in the real world could also be done in the virtual world, but there's a lot of things you could do that is way beyond that. It's more than just putting virtual billboards in spaces. You can actually start to, well, you understand more about the user to start with. So you understand who they are when they're looking at it. You understand what they're doing, what they're interacting with. Those advertising spaces don't just have to be a billboard. They could be a portal. They could be something different. You could actually interact with that advertisement in a much more physical space within the virtual environment. So it could become an actual items that you collect, that you own, that you transfer, that you give to friends, etc. So the idea of advertising moves from a kind of a static or even an animated or video item into something that is actually much more a part of the environment that you interact with. And that's really the key to this. If you can get users to interact with the items and make them a part of their experience, wear them, let's say, then actually they're likely to carry on, and they may well then, they like it and their friends say it's good, they will go and buy it in the physical world as well. So you start to bring these things together. So you can start to see how you can actually merge these environments together. And advertising becomes that interesting kind of touch point between the real and the virtual. And then actually looking at how you collect data, because this only really works if you can collect large amounts of data and actually understand who the user is. And actually be able to bid on those users so that you get the right thing in front of them. Because advertisers want to show the right thing to the right user. So actually being able to find out who that user is, but doing that in a way that you're not having to track them and that you're not having to interfere with their personal experience. You're not getting into their privacy. So we've been doing a lot of work in this space. We're doing a lot of work on a number of technologies, try and allow us to better understand who the user is without actually having to interfere with their privacy. We're wanting to try and understand the context of the user behavior. What are they doing? What have they done? What are they looking at? We've got a lot of opportunities to put things in front of them. So can we actually build up a picture of that user as they interact with the whole environment, be it the game itself or the ads themselves, and actually start to build up pictures. So did they like this ad compared to this ad? Were they interested in cars, or were they interested in wine? Whatever the different items are. And that allows us to start to build up pictures of what the user is and actually ultimately target more ads towards them that they're interested in. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. And also give them that choice. If we can actually make it so that it's an experience. I mean, one of the great advantages of games, And any interactive experience is that it's not a linear experience. It's not something you sit through and you have to sit through from the start to the finish. You make decisions on a constant basis. You decide to go left or right. You decide to interact with something or not. You decide to get into something. You decide to walk through that door. And all those interactive elements allows us to understand that user and actually make decisions that allows us to put different items in front of them, use that to drive the advertising. So you start to get into things like recall and awareness. Affinity is really interesting, where you start to understand not just did they like it, but did they actually recognize it and were they connected to it? And intent. Would they actually then go ahead and buy that item in the physical world that they were interacting with in the virtual world? So there's a lot of really interesting spaces. And this is a big kind of opportunity. This will change the face of advertising over the next 5 to 10 years. And we're very much at the very start of that because we're doing it within games, but we believe that this is exactly where the world will go 5 to 10 years down the line. So there you go.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Any questions? I'm very tempted not to put Slido up at all, just to force you to stick your hands up. It's there if you want to. Oh, God bless you, sir. Well done, that man.
Thanks for 3 brilliant presentations. I've got a question for Ed. You were talking about the new generation and personalisation and the fact they were quite comfortable with it. And we've just been hearing from Chris about the privacy first world. How do you use data protection regulations to enable your personalisation?
I think it's the key to it is all of the things that you get where you check those boxes where you say you're okay with sharing your data. What we had to do, again, some of the things in the background, there are links that you have where you can unsubscribe or you can do all these things, and actually you've got to be really quick to make sure that your identity and access management systems, the guts, as soon as somebody said, I don't want that, then it deletes it straight away. So we had to get some of that kind of identity and access management technology working at the back end, because not everybody wants, people sometimes sign up and then they see what's coming at them and then they go, don't know that I like that, kind of unsubscribe. So you have to, personalisation is exactly that, it's how much any given person wants to share that information. And your job is to make sure that when they don't want it, and you make it easily accessible to say, I don't want this, then you remove them really quickly. So it's building that trust. When I started, I dealt with a number of complaints where people would say, look, I unsubscribed and I'm still getting emails from you, right? So we had to put some kind of tools and technology in play in there so that it allowed for personalisation to sign in and also kind of sign out. But it's making sure you put it in the hands of the user.
The description you gave of the world that your daughter and her friends want to live and shop in, does any of that make you uneasy?
Massively. I remember there was a time I was watching, which scared the living daylights out of me. I was watching Sky Sports, Arnold Palmer Bay Hill Classic, and a notification came up on my phone from Puma advertising and wanting to sell me Arnold Palmer linked stuff. And I was like, Jesus Murphy. But then you could join the dots. So I've got Instagram and I look at Sky Sports. I've got Instagram and I look at Puma. I've got Instagram and I look at golf. And there's a whole bunch of things where they're building a picture on me. So it does, I think that people are now very easy to give up. Sign me up for this, sign me up for that. Come and tell me, give me offers, send me things that I know that I like. And so it does make me feel a little bit uneasy because I'm always saying to make sure you're careful on what you share.
Yeah. You're nodding along to that, Nicola.
Yeah, I am. And, we're here talking about digital today. And, I've got 3 teenage kids and they're all using apps and they have no idea what data they're sharing and who's looking at it. And I think the biggest message for organisations out there is that we've all got a responsibility to make sure that what we're doing as we try to move into a more digital age, protects users. Because, young kids today just have no idea or realism as to everything that they're doing is in print or what they're sharing. So I think we all have a social responsibility to make sure that as we progress, that data is absolutely protected and we're responsible.
Chris, do you think young people particularly care?
I'm sure they do. I think they're more willing to do that transaction that says, if I give you some of the data, then I get something back. And personalization is part of that. So I certainly know from my kids, who are like 18 and 21, that they like the idea that their app tells them things that they're interested in. They much prefer advertising that is related to them. And they're willing to do that transaction as long as it's not doing stuff they don't want it to do and it's not overly tracking them. Then
How would they know?
How would they know that it's...
How would they know it's overly tracking them?
When they start to get it in places they don't want to, or starting to interfere with their experience. I think you've got to understand that kids nowadays are extremely computer literate and extremely understanding of what's going on. They understand what is actually happening. They need to have the ability to control this, absolutely, and consent management platforms are massively important as a part of this. But it is about, and we, when I was talking about the stuff we're doing, we're not necessarily trying to track individuals, we're just trying to build up silhouettes of people, of types of people that we can then put advertising that is related to them. But we're not trying to track individuals, we're trying to give them stuff that they're interested in.
What's the difference between building up personas without tracking people and tracking individuals?
Say that again?
You said what we're trying to do now is find a way to build up personas without tracking people. We need to find a way, you said, of building up personas without tracking people.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that?
We don't track a specific user from across different items or different games. We don't actually track the user. We're simply having an understanding of what this type of user is. So we are not holding and tracking that user across sessions, but we are recognizing within the session that they're of a certain type, and then we're trying to put stuff in front of them. So we're not holding personalized information on them.
Yeah, okay. Anonymous question there on Slido. The prospect that people use TikTok as their primary search engine terrifies me. Discuss. Ed, after you.
Yeah, I wish I was 17. I would agree, but again, I'm of a different generation. I think that there are things, again, it's about educating your kids. And, to your point, Nicola, and talking to them about this stuff. I know I've been talking to my daughter since she was 14 using Snapchat and the impact of it. So I think that, it's evolution, and do you get in the way and try and stop it? How do you do that? And that's the hard thing. And I think that it's, that I used to run, I still run digital security for New Look, but also the whole digital security space. And I've talked to my friends about this. At some point, does somebody flick the switch and it becomes really bad. It becomes a dangerous place. They become the unintended consequence of a lot of these things. And actually, the point is that we rely so much on this stuff now. Actually, the kind of ship's sailed already. So I think the prospect of people using TikTok as a primary search engine, yep, that's quite scary, but actually it's about trying to be, how do we put things in play there that kind of make it ethical, education, how we use these things. It's within our remit to make sure that the next generation coming forward understands this stuff and understands what that means, because I don't think you can stop it other than turning it off.
Nicola?
Yeah, no, I agree with that entirely. I'm showing my age here, but I guess the book 1984, George Orwell, springs to mind in lots of times when we're talking about this stuff. I don't believe our children do actually understand what they're doing. And I do believe that we can sort of change that 1984 book and be really socially responsible for what we do as we lead the digital environment. There's a question up here about, the IoT platform that Edinburgh Council are putting in. Will the data be open data? And it will be, because it's generic data. But the bit that I'm abundantly aware of, when you start to put sensors in people's homes, how far does that go? And, you know, we have got a real social responsibility to make sure that people understand that it's not detailed data that we're gathering. But actually, as I guess, populations evolve and as the years go by, there absolutely is, and it will happen. You know, we've saw that through COVID. We've saw going into bars and restaurants and you're tracking your data. Everybody knows exactly where you are and what you're doing. And I think we really have to be careful that it doesn't go down that dark path. And I would say to every single person here today that as you drive digital in your organisation, which undoubtedly is required to make things more efficient and easy and manageable, we all have a responsibility to make sure that we're doing the right thing by data. And you rewrite that 1984 book and make sure that that doesn't come true, because it could quite easily do that.
Chris, it's maybe just me, but I regard Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, you know, as being bad. Google, bad. TikTok, by virtue of the fact it is a nation state, essentially worse. Am I correct to think that way?
I suppose that's based on, do you believe that the companies themselves now are actually doing bad things with that data? And I have literally no idea if they are or aren't. I think the thing that terrifies people about TikTok isn't the fact it's TikTok, because it's, you know, it's an interesting experience. I don't use it particularly, but my daughters do. And it's just another way of interacting with, you know, the digital space. What I think scares people is the fact that, as you said, it's almost a nation state behind that. And it's where that data goes. And ultimately, you know, data isn't good or bad, it's how it's used. So yes, you've got to be careful that you don't use it in a irresponsible or a bad way. And yes, of course, there is the, you know, the 1984 type examples where this could go. But there are, you know, that's the same with most technologies. Most technologies have good and bad uses. That doesn't make the technology itself bad, nor does it make the use of it, if you use it correctly, bad. Actually, it can be incredibly powerful. You know, if you can get stuff that's interesting to you, if you can see stuff much easier and quicker, if you can interact on a very rapid basis, then that's good. But ultimately, you have to be careful that it isn't. And the problem with some of these is it could end up in hands of people we don't want. And that's the challenge with things like TikTok.
Can I just say to everybody in the audience, Chris actually does have a TikTok account. You'll see him dancing later on. Shh, just joking.
I think it's this thing, again, around responsible, ethical thinking things through. I've been to many things like this where I've seen technology, and the thing going through my head is like, do not get too intelligent than you are being here, because I know it would be cool to do something the following. Boston Robotics, 2012, individual stood up and said, and one day, man won't need to go to war, we'll just send the machines. I'm like, whoa, stop. Hang on, man. Have you not watched Terminator? Right? And they're kind of looking at you going, why are you telling me that? That's getting in the way of progress. And I kind of think that as much as I'm a technologist and I enjoy and like what technology does for us in a good way, I think we need to somehow rein in some getting ahead of ourselves and getting too intelligent of what we could do with it. Because, you know, the beginning of that film actually starts off with a drone attack, which, by the way, that exists now. So, you know, I think, again, the data is kind of taking a responsibility as keeping control of some of these things and not letting it get completely go on its own.
I'm going to take one of the questions that's come up in Slido and slightly modify it for Chris. Free view channels now offer you options where if you pay extra, you know, you don't have to watch the adverts. Mm-hmm. Tickety-boo. Do you think you'll get to the stage where actually they'll have video games saying slightly more expensive, but there's no ads on this one?
Oh, there already is.
There already?
Oh, yes. And one of the there's games out there that you can. One of the items you pay for is to remove ads from the game. But that's
if the game's good, how would you notice the ads in the first place?
The problem with ads, current ads in games, and I'll make a pitch for us now. Current ads in games are really poor because they stop you. They're very similar to TV ads. They break the game experience, just like a TV advertising space, and they force you to watch 30 seconds of ads, and then you get back to the game. And that's a horrible experience. What you actually want is the ad to be product placement, to be a part of the experience. I mean, I do particularly like Formula One, so I watch Formula One. The fact that there's advertising hoardings around the track doesn't detract. I don't care. Actually, I quite like it because it connects to and it makes it look like a racetrack and what I expect. But I don't feel that as advertising. But when they stop the race and they stick a 30-second advertising, I dislike that. So ads are not necessarily bad, but if you have them if you make them that kind of one or the other, then they're a bad experience. And so making it part of the experience is much better.
Really, all we have to say on this matter is the Super Bowl on American television lasts for 5 hours. I say no more. Yes. Nicola, there's a question here. We're talking about basically smart cities. If you're going to use CCTV to monitor traffic flow, is there a plan to link this directly into the traffic light system and manage them live to improve the flow? I think it's got potential for huge chaos.
There is a plan to do that, absolutely in a controlled way. That's got to be the way we move forward. And to make sure it's managed in that automated way. So absolutely, look, there's chaos with traffic lights already when the lights go out and no one can fix them. So yep, that is absolutely the future and a way to automate and actually link it all in for sure. With that data telling you. I don't know if any of you have saw the advert, and it is about, you just touched on it, where actually you don't need your credit cards any longer or debit cards, and actually everything's done through your phone, and you see this chap trying to get in his house because he's forgotten his phone and he can't get in anymore because everything's done through the phone. So we have got to be careful in all of that, but we have to look at the ways that we move things forward and automate through smart cities and actually make sure everything's tapped into the traffic light system for sure. That's part of the plan.
I was laughing when you're talking about putting sensors on the bins because I was here during the Fringe. And I mean, if an alarm is sounding somewhere, it'll be damn near continuous. Wall to wall. Anything else from the floor? Gentleman there. Can we get a microphone to you, please?
Thank you. Question for Chris. So you mentioned that current advertisements in games are too intrusive. It stops the gameplay and it annoys you, basically.
Yep.
And you've mentioned that you need to kind of seamlessly put the product into the game so that the player is interested into it. But wouldn't that interest purely be because it's useful in the game itself? And how could that relate to being, how would you put that attachment towards that product in the real life as well?
In what way? What do you mean by real, as in?
So I'm struggling to figure out how this product could be useful in that virtual space and in the real world as well in most settings or games.
Okay. I mean, I suppose a lot of this is branded advertising. So, we talk a lot about the fact that it's very easy to do digital advertising that sells digital products. You click on a product, you click on an advertising, and you download an app or you get something digitally. But a lot of products are not, and never will be digital. I mean, let's be clear. There's a lot of physical products. You can't buy a Coke with a click. You have to go out and buy a Coke, or you can't buy a car generally through that. You have to go and actually buy these things. So there's physical items, and we experience these items. So the ability to experience the item in a virtual world, be it just seeing a Coca-Cola advert, which actually works for you, even if you look at some of the newer games, they'll still have what look like advertising, which makes sense because it looks like the real space and it has Coca-Cola advertisements. It's still advertising an item that you can then go and buy. So a lot of this is just about immersing, and that's what brand advertising is. It's immersing, it's giving people options and trying to immerse them in a brand that they hopefully go and buy. The fact is you can do this in a much more interesting way. So it doesn't have to be a billboard on the side of a road or on the side of a bus shelter. It could be somebody walking down the street in a new dress, green probably. But and that actually can be something that you can go, oh, that's really interesting. You could then even acquire it in the virtual space, and then you could go and buy it in the real space. So these things can be much more interesting. They don't have to be that kind of we have a very rigid view of advertising, which is, that you see this advertisement that tries to tell you to buy something, and generally not something you want, either not something you want or something you've already bought. But actually, if you can make it something you're interested in and you can give them the ability to interact with it, then hopefully it becomes a much more interesting experience.
It may exist already, I really don't know. But how far away are we, or are we there already, where, you know, you will be able to have a sort of avatar of yourself within the game?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, I mean, Zuckerberg's already trying to do that a lot. There has been for a number of years, certainly on the consoles, and, you know, from Nintendo to Xbox have been building avatars and allowing you to be a person within the game, actually, not just in the system, but actually in games. If anybody played Wii Fit back 10 years ago, you actually had your own avatar, and that avatar went through multiple games. That's going to become much more of a thing. And there'll be just one version of you that will actually be across a load of different environments.
There's a very good, and I like it for two reasons. I dislike it and I like it. The film Ready Player One, if you want a view as to what the metaverse might look like, that will happen. I love the end of that film where they basically said, and what we decided to do was shut the game down for a couple of days so that people would interact with each other in the real world. And that's the bit I love about it. And so I think, yes, that is, you can get the, you know, buying things that get delivered to your door. You know, he buys a new suit in the virtual world in the Oasis, and it gets delivered to his house, and then he's got a different persona in the Oasis because he's got a new back kit. But I think that what we need to do, and there was a question earlier on about what do we do about people who don't like the digital approaches to some of the transformation. Key to a lot of this is making sure that you've still got humans involved in looking at data and personalization and having a human element to what do we go to the customer with, to make sure that it's not just driven by AI and then the machine decides to send you the email or it decides it's going to send you a notification and all that kind of stuff. It's making sure you've still got humans involved together to make sure that you get technology and humans driving the outcome rather than just letting it go. So I think that Ready Player One, watch it if you've not watched it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Ed. There's a couple of questions up here on the screen, one that's disappeared and one that I'm going to try and tie a couple of them together. One was, it's just old people that worry about this. Yeah, it is, because we can see what's going to happen, and actually our kids don't. And actually through time it might become a bit of a moot point, because through time it might become, when you watch all the films, you know, this faceless place where there are no human interaction, and actually your kids get used to that because that's all that they do. But right now, just with climate change, we can actually see what's happening. You know, years ago we were actually enjoying plastic, and now we're trying to remove it from our oceans. And actually right now, what we can see is how fantastic digital is. And I'm a digital fan, like, you know, two colleagues on this panel. But what we do know is the dangers. And I guess the message today, and there's one question down there about putting sensors into homes. And actually, you know, you're going to use that to try and get back to the tenant. Absolutely not. But actually there's organisations that could probably do that. And actually that's the bit we've got to avoid. We've got to avoid in all of this, in our quest to drive digital, staying on the good side, actually being aware of the negative side and making sure that we've got a responsibility to avoid that as much as possible. Because as the decades unfold, your children and your children's children will not know this. But we've got a responsibility right now to stay on the right side of digital and make sure that it's fantastic, like some of the stuff that we've talked about today.
I think we're going to leave it there, because that's a really strong, powerful message to finish on. Can I ask you to thank our three speakers one more time, please? Thank you.